I wrote this LinkedIn message to a woman at Snapchat because I had read an article about the potential of augmented reality, and there was a woman at Snapchat, head of AR, and I said, well, I'm just gonna try to contact her, and the only way
And this was cold, right? By the
this
way.
was very cool. Yeah, very cool. I just saw her name and I was like, I'm just going to try to link her on LinkedIn. It's going to be a long shot probably, but I thought it would be really cool also to show investors our potential and the different use cases on how to use our service.
Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. My name is Dirk-Jan Hupkes, and on this podcast I give the women who work in tech the platform they need to inspire and empower each other. Join me on a journey into the world of entrepreneurship, funding, biases and role models to discover the strategies for success in the tech industry. In other words, how women can disrupt tech. Are you ready to listen? Hey, welcome back to Women Disrupting Tech, and thank you for listening to episode 93. My guest today is Esther Bisschop, an exited founder, investor and business leader who knows what it takes to build, scale and sell a startup. She has leveled up at every stage of her career, going from employee to co-owner to founder to investor. Along the way, she co-founded Vert, a company that started as a platform for 3D models in architecture and later worked with major brands like Nike and Adidas to bring high-quality 3D content to retail and fashion. In 2022, Vert was acquired by Snap Inc. In this episode of Women Disrupting Tech, we learn what it takes to reinvent yourself at every stage of your career. Esther describes the shift in mindset she had to make to move from employee to employer. She talks about creating and taking opportunities as they come and how to stay sane while steering your startup through crisis and selling your company to Snap Inc. What I enjoyed most about this episode is that we cover all working identities that a person, woman or man, can have in life, from employee to employer to founder to investor. We also cover the entire roller coaster of being a startup founder, from building a product and being ready to shine to being almost bankrupt and then, by pure coincidence, connecting with Snap, a conversation that would ultimately end up in being acquired. Therefore, this is one of those episodes where, if you're a startup founder, you want to take notes. We learn about persistence, about mindset, about taking opportunities as they come, and about learning to think big also when selling your company. So, when you're ready to listen and learn how one LinkedIn message can change the future of a startup, please welcome to Women Disrupting Tech, Esther Bisschop. Esther Bisschop, good to have you on Women Disrupting Tech. Welcome. Question I always start with is how you got into your current job or current position.
Thank you, Dirk-Jan. Yeah, thanks for having me on the podcast. Really excited to be here. Yeah, so my current position, actually, I'm a little bit in limbo, comfortably in limbo, as I would say. It's also a bit of a process and a challenge. While being in limbo, I did make the decision to also start investing and do a bit of business angel tickets. Just keep the feel with the startup community and also, to really support other founders. So that is definitely something I'm enjoying, but also learning. So it's a new, it's something new for me. And I really enjoy learning new skills and learning new things. And of course, I do have a background as a founder myself.
Yeah. What is the challenge, if I may ask?
The challenge of being in limbo?
Yeah.
Yeah, the challenge of being in limbo. Well, it's when you sell your company, and then we joined the buyer, Snapchat. But we worked there for 2.5 years. But then after laying down my position or quitting that job, then you all of a sudden are at home and you're kind of pondering upon your next step, and that is something really enjoyable. It's really I consider it a luxury as well. I really enjoy being able to take this time off with my family and also spending more time at home. but it's also a process and a time of self-reflection and thinking, what's next? What am I going to do now? Am I going to start a new business, or am I going to get a job again? What
Yeah.
fits me in this new state of, I don't know, career, let's
Yeah.
say. So that's definitely a journey.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So we're going to discuss your journey in basically it's a journey, as we will find out, from being an employee to being an entrepreneur to being a founder and now being an investor, which happens to coincide with the book Rich Dad's Cash Flow Quadrant.
Yes.
Before we start, I just want to say to the listeners, we're not glorifying any of the quadrants, but I just found it really amusing to see that those four quadrants appear in the life stages as in the journey stages of Esther. So that's why we cover them also in order of appearance in the books. And I'll include a link to that book in the show notes. Before we go there, I think you were raised by two entrepreneurial parents, dentists.
Yeah.
How did the entrepreneurial mindset of your parents influence you?
Yeah, it's a good question. Something I also asked myself because, as you know, I joined the startup of my brother. So actually, my brother and I both have an entrepreneurial heart, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
How did it affect me while growing up? I think, well, me as a woman, I think it was very good and very natural for me to see my mother also work full time and to be responsible for their business. So of course, my parents first, I think, were medical schooled people, so
Mm-hmm.
they were dentists. But then, they did own and run their own practice, or they practiced together at first, and then they separated they run their separate practices. But that made them, of course, entrepreneurs. They had to hire staff and manage the whole place,
Mm-hmm.
make sure there were enough patients. There was always talk about, or not always, but at night when we were having dinner, there was always some talk as well about the business, about the practice, about dentistry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think seeing my mother in the same job as my dad, or them having the same position, and I think also their mindset in this of raising me and my brother completely equal made me to the person that I am today. Yeah, also making it very normal for me, actually never questioning whether I would have or I would find things more difficult in life or have less opportunities or other kind of opportunities. Actually, I was a little bit naive, maybe even in that sense. Yeah, I would say.
Did you ever contemplate going into the medical field?
That's actually a question that me and my brother get a lot. Like, oh,
Yeah,
both
yeah.
your parents are dentists. Actually, my stepdad was a dentist. My uncle was a dentist. So, like, the whole family is into
Okay.
dentistry. So, a lot of, we got that question a lot when we were young. But actually, no, I never thought about
At,
going into
okay.
dentistry or anything medical. Although I must say that now, later in my life, I do have a lot more interest in the medical part of things and also like healthy food and just exercising, making sure you keep your body in a healthy condition. Maybe that comes with age,
Yeah.
but I think it's also also part of the way my parents brought us up. Always criticizing eating too much candy, and we never had
Yeah,
any
yeah,
how do you say lollipops in the
yeah,
house,
yeah.
like forbidden. No way, that's really bad for your teeth. So yeah, I think I did grow up with a healthy mindset. Although I didn't really follow that until like in my student days and stuff, I did everything that students do. But
Yeah.
yeah, now I think I definitely go back to a more or I'm enthusiastic more about like also med tech and and just the medical part of things, or your health and your body.
Yeah. Yeah. I never had a problem with the candy. I never liked it.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
So
then it's
much
not
to the
difficult at
dismay
all.
of my dentist, to be honest.
I must say, I'm also not a big fan. I don't have a sweet tooth. Yeah, but maybe it's my upbringing. Maybe it's what nature
So
provided, right?
sometimes to me it was sort of came natural. I never
Yeah,
just never liked it.
never
So
liked it. No.
so at some point you start to study, and then you, if I remember correctly, you sort of got interested in multimedia, in tech, and in e-learning type of thingies. Let's first go to where what you studied, because I found that an interesting starting point.
Yeah. So actually, I think during high school is when the whole internet hype came up. I was, I think, the one in the family that kind of, I was really interested in all this multimedia and the internet and technology. So I bought a computer. How do you say? Created the first like internet connection at home with the whole like dialing in.
Yeah, yeah, the old modem.
Yeah, exactly. Like old school. I noticed that I was explaining my mom and my stepdad like how it works and what it kind of can bring. And then I remember taking a year off before I went to study actually, and I built my mother a database, patient database to use in her practice because
Yeah,
everything was still done by paper cards.
yeah.
And that was really helpful. And I thought, oh wow, this is really a lot of fun. So I kind of liked the tech part, but then decided not to really study a hardcore tech education or to do a hardcore tech education. I really had a big love for traveling and for people and culture. I wanted to study history or archaeology. In the end, I decided on cultural anthropology, so studying people and cultures. And I went to Amsterdam. And 2 years in my study, I took a year off to go traveling. Also, a long, long felt wish that I had. Went traveling to Latin America for about a year. And there I met a guy who was into multimedia. And then that kind of sparked my love again for like the whole technological part of things and also creative tech.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, maybe I can make a combination between cultural anthropology and multimedia technology in some sort. And that's when I decided to do a minor in multimedia technology, which actually was a very fascinating and interesting combination to do cultural anthropology and multimedia technology in two different, university departments and very different people and very different public studying those two studies.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very fun combination. And with that combination, finished both my minor and my master. And then actually a friend of the family told me like, hey, you should check out this new upcoming field. It's called e-learning. It's digital learning. And it's people and technology, the things that you studied, but you just put like a bridge of education in between. And I thought, that actually sounds fun. That sounds really interesting. So that's when I ended up applying for a job of it was a trainee position at an e-learning agency in Hilversum.
Okay, and this was Thinkwise
Yeah,
already?
this was Thinkwise indeed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's where your journey as an employee starts. And at some point, you, I think, got the opportunity to move from employee to becoming an entrepreneur
Yeah.
at
Yeah, that's true.
Thinkwise. So maybe one, take us through what you did at Thinkwise, what kind of projects we're talking about, because e-learning is quite a broad field. And two, what happened and how that move came about.
Yeah, so I started as a trainee. Thinkwise really needed to kind of learn how to work at first, and e-learning is the kind of e-learning that we created at Thinkwise is very bespoke, very custom. So we do projects or programs for Dutch corporates, large companies that have a specific educational challenge or desire, and they want to educate their employees on something new. It can be new legislation, new rules, safety, all kinds of stuff. And it was our job to create those programs. What I really loved about, well, first of all, the company was a small company led by two fantastic people who gave me all the space to learn, all the space to kind of also discover what really fitted me. The whole combination of people, tech, creativity, working together with other people in a project or program based kind of timing, really taking on an assignment, finishing it, and then going on to a next assignment, seeing a lot of companies from within, doing a lot of consultancy. I really loved the place. And what I also loved was the whole creativity part of it. So really being able to start at a white canvas, more or less, together with a customer. Yeah, and to really create something that really fits their company, fits their employees. So I started out as a trainee, then worked as a project employee, let's say, or project person. doing content, a lot of content, wrote a lot of content. And then project manager, account manager. And then the owners asked me to join the management team. I think that's when I already got a lot more feel for, what it's like to be an employer or somebody, a business owner. But of course, I wasn't one myself, but I felt really, responsible for the whole business, for all the people working there. We grew the team. We were doing a lot more projects. And then a shift happened. The owner sold the company to new owners. And with that, actually, me and a colleague of mine, we were asked to become creative director, the other colleague, and operational director in this new setup of the company with these new owners. That's actually when this colleague of mine, who was going to be creative director, we kind of got together and he said, Esther, this is really an opportunity for us. Why don't we try to negotiate that we buy a little part of the company and become directors, but also co-owners, or how do you say, partners in the company. And that kind of, I think I knew we had been talking about this a little bit with the former owners, but it was just a possibility that I kind of never thought of myself. Like, this is a possibility. You can buy part of the company, you can buy a little bit of skin in the game or a share. And the fact that he opened that door for me is, I believe, one of the, sometimes you have these pivotal moments in your journey, right? And this was for me definitely a pivotal moment. I think that's why I am an entrepreneur and a founder and, everything that I am today as well. Because of that spark that he kind of gave us. And that's what we did. So we sat down with the new owners and discussed this proposal. I'd really love to become directors, but we would also love to be much more even part of the company and become partners. So we, that's what we ended up signing together. And we bought a share of the company, small share of the company. That really opens up a whole dimension, right? Because you're suddenly, you're a shareholder, you're an entrepreneur.
What does it change?
For me, it changed my focus. So first, you're an employee and you think your focus is more from your own perspective. I work at this company and how do I want my position, or as an employee, how do I want to be treated? What is good for us? And when I became partner, it was much more about the company as a whole. Like, okay, we have this entity and everybody who works here also provides to this entity, but also lives off this entity. We are all together in this, and it needs to stay healthy. It needs to grow. It needs to stay up to date. So I think as an employee, you also realize these kind of things. But seeing the cash flow, seeing the challenges of maybe employees going and becoming sick, or people leaving, or like all these kind of problems as a whole for the whole of the company became much more clear to me. And also the fact that as a shareholder and as a director, you're there to defend or nourish or cherish that whole entity of the company. And not only maybe the perspective of a couple of employees. And I think that's definitely what switched in my mind. I think it opened up a whole new dimension of a lot more hats and troubles and challenges that you get as being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Did you ever doubt your step?
Did I ever doubt my step? No, I didn't doubt my step, but I did find it difficult at times, especially when making that move, because I was very, I was also really good friends with all of my colleagues. And then all of a sudden you become kind of like the boss,
Yeah.
And that's just really difficult. It was difficult for me to kind of switch. And it was difficult for, I think, other people to see you in a different way. All of a sudden you notice that maybe people where first we would discuss a lot of things, that sometimes some people would choose not to discuss things with you as open anymore, or things would, conversations would kind of shift, or for me it would feel really not done anymore to maybe stay up really late and drink a lot of beer with colleagues. You kind of feel another responsibility. So things definitely switched. And I remember there was a difficult period in making this whole transition. And actually a good friend of mine and colleague at the time said to me, Esther, you know what? We're on a ship and the ship needs a captain. And now you are appointed one of the captains. So take the steering wheel and go steer the ship. And that was really what I kind of needed to hear. It almost felt like I had her permission as a good friend and as a colleague to take on that role. I kind of needed that confirmation that she had that trust in me as well, or something like that. And yeah, I think that's actually, that was what made that shift happen. From then on, I kind of felt like, okay, I'm going to take the steering wheel, I'm going to do my job and do it as well as I can, And so it kind of comes with like taking these stepping stones or leaps or levels as it feels like opening up another level in the game.
Yeah.
More, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. But then again, if you're leveling up.
Yeah.
You leveled up after that as well. So it wasn't like you were staying and living happily ever after.
No.
So what triggered your transition to working with your brother?
Yeah.
Because
Becoming a founder.
becoming a founder.
Yeah, so when I was an operations director and partner at Thinkwise, I did that for about 6 years, and I think in my last year, more or less, so in total, I stayed with the company for 12 years, so quite a long time, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I really had a great time. But then in the last year, my brother had started a company, a startup, doing really innovative stuff, or the last 2 years in 2014. So he started that company. We were, of course, during family gatherings, we were kind of discussing, his plans and his innovations. And my parents had also borrowed him some money so he could start his company. And it kind of fascinated me what he was doing. And from an entrepreneurial perspective, I thought it was really interesting as well. Like we had really interesting conversations all of a sudden as a brother and sister, but also like from a business point of view, from a career point of view.
Yeah.
So I wanted to understand his choices, and he kind of asked me for advice sometimes. And his office was in Amsterdam, but he lived in Breda. Well, as you know, that's quite a journey
For
Dutch.
the Dutch people,
But
that is quite a
in
journey.
that perspective, it's quite a journey.
It's 2 hours or so by car.
Exactly, yeah. So I told him, why don't you come and stay at my place for 3 nights a week? My husband is a chef cook, so he's away a lot at night. We can maybe continue our conversations at night, and I can help you a little bit. And I'm super interested to learn from you as well, your perspective, your startup journey.
What
You're
did he do?
Yeah, so he started a company. He started third. That's the startup I also joined. But the first product that they launched, he and Tristan Beta, the partner he started the company with, they started a platform for 3D stock images of people. So it's called Human Alloy. It's still active, actually, if you want to Google it. But it's a database or platform marketplace for people in 3D that can be used in all kind of solutions. So AR, augmented reality, VR, for gaming. What we saw at that time was that there were a lot of architectural visualizations already done in 3D. So like a lot of buildings, a lot of products already get designed in 3D. Especially for selling or visualizing a building, it's crucial actually to show people in the building, because otherwise it doesn't sell.
Yeah, just
But
live.
exactly, yeah. But people are super hard to create in 3D. We, of course, have very organic shapes, so it's very hard to model, to 3D model. Also, we are very programmed to detect the uncanny valley really quickly. So we sense when things are kind of off and not really realistically. And Tristan, especially in his line of work and his experience in 3D, had to do a lot of architectural visualizations that kind of sticked 2D people onto a 3D design.
Yeah.
Just
Just
just gives
doesn't
a
work.
really off, visual. It just looks really weird. And he said this needs to be there. There must be a better way, And if everybody in the world has this kind of problem for architectural visualizations, it can actually be a very good business model to create a marketplace of 3D people that you can sell online everywhere, right? Internationally. So that was the whole idea they started with, and they built a 3D scanner using a lot of their own technologies as well, their own innovations to create 3D images of people. So they did a lot of studio days. They created a lot of images of people, worked them out. And actually it's a very smart business model, because you have a digital product that you can copy infinitely. People need to buy this stock image for their projects. So that's what they were doing, 3D scanning to create these people.
Okay.
So then my brother stayed with me 3 nights a week, and we kind of started discussing challenges that they had and business ideas and other opportunities and stuff. And then we just completely clicked, like my brother and me, and we have always had a good relationship, I think, as siblings. But we kind of found a new common ground entrepreneurially, these entrepreneurial conversations, which was just a lot of fun, actually. I told him that I had this idea of, leaving Thinkwise as well at a certain point, and I wanted to my kids were 4 and 1 years old at the time, and we really wanted to take advantage, let's say, of the fact that they did not have to go to school yet. My husband is from Latin America, so we wanted to go travel for about a year. I sold my shares in Thinkwise with my job, my husband as well. And, we traveled for a year, and I proposed to my brother, like, hey, why don't I try to set up a Google Ads campaign for you guys? Because they were really busy building that marketplace and they were definitely doing their commercial stuff.
Yeah.
But I think there was still a lot to gain in that sense. And I really wanted to learn for myself. I had this idea of maybe doing a freelance job after traveling, or maybe while traveling, while being abroad. And I thought, well, digital advertising is always a good skill to learn. So I told my brother, why don't I use your company as like my, let's say, guinea pig project? You don't have to pay me. I just figure out how these ads work. And if you get any money out of it, then good for you and Tristan, And that's what we did. So during my travels, I took a little bit of time to invest my time in learning this new skill. I put up their ads. And actually, within a year, they made a lot of money, like 100,000 euros in, revenue extra. Yeah. So my brother's like, I don't know what you did, but you did a really good job.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it shows the potential as well, right, of the marketplace. And I mean, sure, I did a good job in putting up these ads, but I think it also shows the potential of your business case.
Yeah.
And then when I came back and started freelancing, my brother and I kind of continued these conversations. We really just had a lot of fun. And also, I spoke more with Tristan and his ideas, and kind of really clicked. I think we all felt like, hey, I might be a little bit like the missing link in the founder team. I think my brother has a very good business mind. He's very keen on business and finance and all these things. And Tristan is a very technical, very experienced guy in 3D. Yeah, and I think I'm more of a commercial kind of woman, and networking, seeing business opportunities in a different way, talking to customers, doing consultancy as I did with Thinkwise, having a keen eye for operations. So I think, that kind of just clicked. And then we kind of started having these conversations where the guy said, hey, don't you want to join? Don't you want to become part of the company? But of course, me and my brother are also siblings. And we said, well, let's continue like this for a little bit. And I also said, I'm actually a way better add-on to the team when we can actually scale. And in that time, we were also thinking of doing a pivot or creating an extra product, which was product scanning. So we noticed that there were a lot of fashion brands who were actually really interested also in the quality of our scans, the quality of our people scans. They were looking for a way to digitize their fashion products, their collections. And that's why actually me and my brother really sat down and thought about this whole business idea. And we decided, well, more or less at the same time as I decided to kind of join the company, we pivoted the business strategy as well to focus more on product scanning. Hence the fact that, I entered as a co-founder, because that's actually what Third then later focused on a lot more, is really the fashion market, scanning fashion products.
Okay. And just for context, perhaps it's good to give this some feel of how it's applied. Most people know how you can fit your furniture in IKEA into your living room. Is it sort of the same that you can actually try on clothes as a big picture of yourself and then put those clothes on? Is it that type of?
Yeah, completely. So it was at that time, the metaverse was a big hype. Before AI, and everything was going to go 3D, like we had the Google glasses and everything was, and I think maybe this is still something that is going to happen, but yeah, so the whole having your collection in 3D desire of fashion brands was also to like do the magic mirrors, where you can fit your clothes on in your mirror at home or
Mhm.
in a store, but also like augmented reality filters, like the ones that are
Yeah.
used in Snapchat, where you can
Yeah.
virtually try on shoes, those, and also for the design process, right, of creating new products. This can also entail like, a 3D model instead of
Oh, you can
a
actually
real.
it's like a dress doll, but then in real life.
Yeah, more or less. And also for like, instead of shipping a lot of samples around the world, you could
Yeah.
scan one sample and ship it digitally
Yeah.
or send it digitally, just in order to reduce waste. So those were all like different kind of how do you say,
Entries.
product market fit kind of cases that we were trying to figure out together with fashion brands as well, because we didn't have a background in fashion, and we were kind of trying like, hey, what would be a good use case for
Hmm.
these 3D models? Yeah,
Okay.
but definitely on the like the marketing, product photography, and the whole studio idea of a product photography session
Yeah.
can be disrupted by using 3D models, and that's actually what's happening now. You see this in big brands, that they have their 3D models of their collection, and they create all kinds of product photography using these 3D models instead of doing actual shoots.
Okay. So it also saves, I guess, a lot of work in
Yeah,
terms of having to organize those shoots with
completely.
various different models, various different looks, because you want to link to the market where you're active.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So you
it's
can use you can put the you could put the shoes on the tennis court, but also on a football field without actually going to the tennis court or the football field.
yeah.
Just design it in 3D. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Um, and then you ran into a little bit of a road bump called COVID.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, just maybe so just to pick up the story. So then in the end, I did decide, we actually won an accelerator program for Adidas, which
Hmm.
was really, really cool. It really gave our pivotal idea a whole boost. So we were able to build a product scanner using like the revenue that came out of the accelerator program
Hmm.
assignment. And that was really the moment we saw a lot of traction. Like there
Hmm.
were a lot of big brands that wanted to work with us. We had a lot of bigger projects, innovation products that were coming our way. And that's actually when my brother and Tristan said, hey, yes, if you want to join, then maybe now is the time, because now we can, after this
Scale.
scale, we noticed that there's product market fit. And I think that's also a good position for you to enter. That's also your experience that we can really use.
Hmm.
And at this point, we don't have any investors in our company yet. So we can really create that deal together.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. They had a crowdfunding way at the beginning of the company, but there was no VC involved or anything. So we created that deal. I bought 30% of the company. We decided to sign the deal. I think it was 31st of December, 2019.
Just when you were gearing up to start building for those really big contracts.
Exactly. Yeah. So we had a lot of things like coming our way in the pipeline. We actually moved to another office building. We were first incorporated in B Amsterdam. We had rented our own office space for the first time. My brother had booked holiday for the first time in years to go on a holiday with his wife and his, I think, 1-year-old son at the time. And we kind of felt like, okay, we're getting ready for this next big move. We're
Yeah.
like this rocket getting ready for takeoff. And it
Yeah.
was just a really good feeling. I was finishing up my freelance assignment at the time, and we really felt super positive. And then my brother went on this holiday. He went to the United States. And then, this whole thing of like COVID came our way from Asia, as we all remember, of course. And I remember my brother took off like the night before, the day before the whole airspace closed off. And we were like, good, you made it. You made it. Enjoy your holiday. It's
Yeah.
all going to be over soon. Yeah, no worries. But
And by the way, he couldn't fly back anyway.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And then we were like, as the weeks progressed, I think it was 1 or 2 weeks that passed, things just went really, really bad. And all of us at home were also like, maybe you should come back. Actually, they were repatriating like tourists and stuff. But my brother rented a camper bus, so he needed to drive down to the, how to say, the delivery. Now it's not called the delivery, like the drop-off point.
Yeah.
So yeah, they cut off their holiday short, and they needed to just drive for days in a row to get to this drop-off point, and then took the plane back with a small child with like masked, not knowing what happened, like in airports, like ready to touch anything, or very careful to touch anything. And I remember that he came home, and I think he was at the office and I was at home because there was a lockdown going on, and he opened his email, and he just called me, I think almost in tears. And he said, everything just dropped. Like all of the customers do not want to continue with or almost all of the customers did not want to continue with the innovation projects. Logical, or makes sense.
That was the moment that all marketing budget got slashed.
And also any kind of innovation that was not urgent to the business just, was put on hold. So we just felt like the whole ramp up that we had been constructing just completely fell apart like a house of cards. And that was really hard. I think especially also for me, it was hard because I just made the decision of signing that deal and, giving up my freelance existence and being part of the company. But for my brother and Tristan, they'd been working on this for years already, and they finally had this feeling of like, okay, ready for takeoff. And then boom, this happens. And it was just
sort of implodes.
Yeah, it was just so difficult. And I remember like also to kind of stay sane mentally, my brother and I decided to create our own bubble and to just be at the office as much as possible together, to kind of, get our heads around it still. And actually at that time I was winding down my freelance assignment. I was at the company's office a little bit, but then as this whole thing happened, we kind of had a meeting together as well. And we said, what can we do? You go into crisis mode. There's nothing, like everything has fallen apart around you. So you go into crisis mode. And I said, the only thing I can think of is that I can see if I can extend my freelance assignment a little bit longer. And Third actually hires me out as a freelancer instead of me doing that on my own benefit. And that way it's a little bit of revenue that comes in monthly for the company. We can at least do our grocery shopping, and then kind of see where, when and where this whole thing ends. So that's what we did. I stayed on for another 3 or 4 months, I believe, on my freelance assignment. And my brother and Tristan kind of tried to, do whatever possible to kind of pick up the pieces and still continue doing things. Actually, I think within that year also, there was an RVO loan that came to be for startups that were finding themselves in a very difficult place because of COVID. So we took on the loan.
RVO, for context, is Dutch government.
Yeah, Dutch government, exactly.
But then Ministry of Economic Affairs.
Yeah, and of course you put yourself into debt, but we thought like our business is valid enough to do that, and we really wanted to give it another shot. But that was definitely one of the times that we almost went bankrupt, right? We were just like, oh, how are we gonna get out of this?
How do you keep mentally sane in that time
so
space?
I think going into crisis mode, and for me, at least feeling that I could do something to contribute, like holding on to my freelance assignment, at least bringing a little bit of money to the table, for me was, something that I could kind of hold on to. I think the RVO loan definitely gave us more perspective, but it was extremely difficult. Especially also for my brother and Tristan. I think they were really devastated by the whole thing. And well, as I said, I tried to be in a bubble. I couldn't work at the office I was doing my freelance job at. So I was either working at home or sitting in with my brother at the office. So he was doing third and I was doing my freelance assignment just to be together and to kind of, our worries and kind of, there's not a lot more you can do. We knew we just had to go on and hopefully this would all end soon. Then actually the second part of COVID, perspective really shifted, right? So everything went to become much more digital. Like all the fashion brands also saw a lot of like a big boost in e-commerce. All of a sudden there was again this inspiration or this spark for like e-commerce, metaverse, digital fitting, a virtual try on. So we kind of saw in the second half of COVID that things started picking up. The only challenge for us in our own business was that the shipments were still very much delayed. And for us being a 3D scanning company, we need the actual physical products to scan them. So that was definitely still a challenge, but we definitely, we saw that the whole mindset towards innovation and the type of innovation that we were doing was shifting. And we could really use, or how to say, take advantage of that and, get our business back up and running.
Yeah, because I was curious about that, because in hindsight, benefit is hindsight is always really nice. But in hindsight, you had perfect business model to deal with COVID, except for the delivery part of getting the
Shit.
materials to your
Yeah.
studio.
Yeah.
Aside from that, it was sort of
Yeah. It was a good case, definitely. But it was all still very innovative, right? So there was no brand doing this on a large scale. There was no solution being able to do this at a large scale. That's actually what we were building, right? So
yeah,
what we were building was a solution for like big volumes, like digitizing entire collections.
yeah,
So, but we definitely saw traction.
yeah.
So in the second half of COVID, we kind of felt this acceleration again. And that's when we actually thought, "Oh, now we need to move fast because
Mm-hmm,
our technology is maybe, going to be," I think we were very much ahead of the game at the beginning.
mm-hmm.
Also, I think I can definitely say this globally, we were very innovative with our solution. But then, after a year and a half of like scrapping, and just really struggling to survive, we kind of felt like, oh, there's a lot of things that we actually need to upgrade or do better.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we thought, okay, now would actually be a really good time to get an investment.
Mm-hmm.
But from an investment perspective, it's of course a challenging place to be in.
Yeah,
They are, and I think a lot of VCs are but are eager to put money when there's room for growth. But
yeah.
for actual innovation without a solid product market fit, it's pretty hard to get a good investment. But we decided to embark on that journey and just, where we were, of course, we believed in our plan, and we also had a lot of customers to show for it. We tried to make that case very visible. A lot of questions we got was also around the way our products could be used, like the use cases. What are the use cases for the service that you offer? And that's actually when we kind of thought of like, hey, maybe we should partner up with companies that provide these kind of use cases, right? Such as Snapchat.
Yeah.
So that's when Snapchat also came on our path, let's say.
Okay. And before that, you, except for the RVO loan and the early crowdfunding, you pretty much bootstrapped, I think.
Yes, we bootstrapped the whole company. Yeah.
Would you do it again?
Yes and no. So in a sense, it gave us a lot of freedom. It was also a very conscious choice. We did talk to, or I know my brother Tristan talked to investors early on,
Mm-hmm.
but hardware, we are a
Yeah,
hardware software company, is very difficult to get funding for.
yeah,
So we first had to prove our business.
yeah.
And that's why they actually decided then to do the crowdfunding campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So would I do it again? I think there was not a lot of choice. We had to kind of do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
I think it does help you focus a lot on like, hey, where does the revenue come from? What's your worth in real life for customers? Like you
Mm-hmm.
really need to be able to sell your stuff because otherwise no revenue comes in and you won't survive. But it also takes a lot of time. Yeah, you're constantly, every month you're surviving and you need to put in this time with customers to make sure that you're driving the business and assuring cash flow. And that's sometimes also distracts you more or less from doing the innovation that's necessary to really scale. And
Yeah,
that's, I think, the hard thing about bootstrapping is if you're still developing your product, developing your innovation, it takes time off of this process
yeah.
because you need to survive. And you sometimes therefore do projects that are not really supporting your innovation, but it's more about staying
Getting
afloat.
cash flow.
Yeah. So that's, I think, the difficulty. But I don't think we had a lot of choice, to be honest. Yeah. I think now the investment climate is also different. Although for hardware, I think it's still pretty hard to get.
Yeah, it's. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think maybe from an investor, yeah, of course you need to ask an investor for a solid answer. But my perspective would be, I think, yeah, if you, as an investor, you want to put your money where you can accomplish growth, right? And if you need to put money in first building a machine and then potentially having growth, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot more risk.
No, that I understand, but especially in the second stage.
Yeah.
So let's say second part of COVID, I could imagine that investors were like, "Hey, but now there is
Yeah.
actually
No, and that's
it's not as uncertain as in first stage." Let's say at first I understand the thing. Yeah, I have to understand invest a boatload of money into developing a machine that may or may not materialize, and then may or may not potentially, eventually, maybe give me my money back, or better yet, double it,
yeah.
put a factor on it.
No,
But
that's true.
in the later stage, I would have expected that investors were flocking to you, because especially at the second stage of COVID, I think it was pretty clear for everyone, at least in advertising and product development, that this was going to be part of their future anyway.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So no, we definitely noticed that as well. Although I can't say they flocked around. They weren't standing in line to invest in us, but
Well,
we did have, I think, more and more interesting conversations with various investors. We did. But then at the same time, yeah, this conversation with Snap happened. I wrote this LinkedIn message to a woman at Snapchat because I had read an article about yeah, the potential of augmented reality, and there was a woman at Snapchat, head of AR.
mm.
And I said, well, I'm just going to try to contact her. And the only way
And this was cold right away, by the
this
way.
was very cool. Yeah, very cool. I just saw her name and I was like, I'm just going to try to link her on LinkedIn. You know, it's going to be a long shot probably, but I thought it would be really cool also to show investors our potential and the different use cases on how to use our service, partner up with Snap.
Mhm.
Or how do you say, a company such as Snap, could also
Yeah.
be Meta or any, yeah.
But Snap
But
was
probably,
really forward. They are
yeah,
still,
exactly.
I
And
think,
they,
forward thinking in this
yeah, and
area.
they really have a big focus on augmented reality, right? And all
Uh,
the Snap filters. We were also using that actually already to showcase what we're capable of,
mhm.
just creating filters that you could scan with a QR code. So I reached out to her on LinkedIn, of course, thought really carefully about the 140 characters that you could put in an invitation message at that time. I think now it's different, but at that time it was 140 characters. Really thought about, okay, how am I going to grab her attention? And then, a little bit to my surprise, within a day or two, she reacted very positively, and she said, "Hey, super interesting what you're building. We would love to have a conversation. You need to write an email with a small summary of what you do and your pitch deck to this guy." She gave me the email address, and I was like, "Wow, this is cool. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe we can do something with Snapchat. You know, that
Yeah.
would be fun." And actually, that first message and that first call we had, yeah, kind of snowballed all the way into the exit because after one or two meetings, they said, yeah, actually, we're not only interested in becoming a partner or investing potentially in you, we would really like to talk about an M&A
So
process.
takeover.
Yeah. So yeah, acquisition. And
Oh
that's,
yeah.
yeah, we were not, that was like not the scenario we had thought of, right? We were like, okay, how can we stay alive? So bootstrapping, who do we need to work with to make enough money to stay alive? How are we going to get investors? And can we get a good partnership? Those were the things where we were like focusing on as
Yeah.
founders, you know. And then all of a sudden, this big company comes and says, "Yeah, we would like to acquire you." Yeah, as founders, we really,
What happens then?
yeah. What happens
So you sit in that meeting that they tell you, well, guess what? We're
actually?
actually want to acquire you. Never mind the partnership, we want to acquire you. You hang up. Then what happens?
Yeah. So yeah, we got together as founders and we decided, okay, maybe it's time for a good chat. You know,
Yeah.
we really need to talk. And we had these chats like every once in a while, right? So you just go back and you focus, like, okay, are we on the right track? Like just going, putting your head up from the like
Yeah.
the
Over.
mud you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then we said, okay, we need to meet like now or like tomorrow in person so we can talk.
Hmm.
Yeah, and we kind of just went through all the different scenarios. It is of course, like they said they wanted to continue conversation to see if an M&A would be feasible, right?
Yeah.
So they express their interest. But of course, there's no guarantee, there's no certainty. You just embark on a conversation, right? It's just, you take another step. But it does open perspective, like, oh, that could also be a possibility, right? It's like, I think at the end of this conversation, we all said, well, let's at least have that conversation, because otherwise you never know, right? And I think also COVID and the whole emotional, mental strain that caused, the years that we were already building the company, the difficulty we knew existed in acquiring investments for hardware and for this kind of innovation. Actually, we also knew that AI was already happening, and also in our field would definitely have an effect. We didn't know when or how fast, but we knew it was coming, and that we would also need a lot of money and a lot of time and knowledge and skilled people to incorporate that part, like, of innovation into our system.
Yeah.
So I think taking all of that together, we said, okay, let's at least have this conversation. Let's be open and just see what it can bring us. And it could also be a really nice way to maybe work with the same brands that we are already working with, but from a whole different kind of umbrella, right? And that's because that's also something we noticed. Like we had conversations with big fashion brands, but they were like, yeah, we really like your solution, but it's kind of iffy for us if we want to put our whole trust into a little startup in Amsterdam for this whole innovative thing where, we want to put up for our brand. And I understand that. Yeah, it's super insecure. So elephants talk to elephants, right? And that's also something that big customers, big names talk to big names. And that's something that we really realized as a small startup. Yeah, it's pretty hard to compete with the big guys, and really for big companies to put a big proportion of innovation or a process shift in their production into the hands of a small startup. Yeah. So I think all of that together kind of led us to the decision, okay, let's talk and let's see. And if we can scale our technology under this umbrella of Snapchat potentially.
Yeah, then you are part of the quote unquote
how cool is
elephants.
that? You're part of the future. You're part of all this innovation happening, and our tech can help with that. And we can continue working on what we're building, but not have all that stress.
Did you have conversations with other parties about a possible M&A?
So we did a pilot for Meta at this more or less at the same time. And we kind of tried to bring up that conversation, but I think that's, maybe because it was a surprise to us, or it kind of happened to us. I think if you would plan for this, you would, we were just not there yet, let's say, right? If you have product market fit and you can really scale and your solution is like part of the future vision of different fashion companies, then I think is a really good moment to embark on these kind of conversations. Like, hey, if exit is part of your plan, to really be very strategic about that. We were just there yet, so it kind of happened. And then we were like, oh, shouldn't we also have conversations with other parties? Well, you can't force this, right? This takes time. It takes rapport. You need to build a relationship. And we did try, but
Okay. So I was wondering, because part of M&A is also valuing your own company. How did you go about doing that? Because you had a bit of traction, but then again, and maybe also a bit of sales.
We had revenue. Of course, we were, we had how do you say, black numbers, as we say in the Netherlands. We had a positive year.
You were
not
profitable.
year, by the way. Yeah. But we were able, let's say we were able to stay afloat.
Yeah.
And I think this is also definitely where my brother's experience and skill set comes in. So he's very much a business guy. He studied economics or business. Yeah, and I think we did different exercises. We also talked to other people, external advisors, but it's very hard if you don't have an investment to pinpoint the value of your company, because there's nothing apart from revenue and potential to go from, more or less. And maybe the stuff you have in your
Yeah. Your balance sheet. Did you have IP, by the way?
Yeah, so we did have our own proprietary software and, of course, our own tech. We
Uh-huh.
didn't have any, how do you say, patents, but yeah, the whole scanner we designed and developed it ourselves. It was different kind of techniques, but we created that as a whole. Part of that was also proprietary, and definitely the software that we had created to automate the whole post processing was also proprietary.
Ah.
So yeah, that was IP that we had in the company, and of course, yeah, the customers, yeah, the whole innovation. So definitely, yeah, you go about different ways, right? So I think our first kind of natural way of looking at it is how much debt do we have in the company,
Yeah.
and we want to make sure that we can pay all that, and then kind of have a little bit for ourselves.
Else. Yeah.
So that was the first exercise. And then you come to a certain value.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's also maybe, I'm not sure, but it can be maybe a bit of a Dutch way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it was my brother who said, yeah, guys, this is nice. You know, we're doing an exercise of how much cost we would like to get covered,
Yeah.
but we need to think bigger.
And
This
what
is
is
an
the value for
American
them?
company. Yeah, what are we worth? What is our potential worth to Snap? That actually shifted the perspective, yeah, quite a bit. And until today, I'm grateful for my brother for having that perspective because, yeah, it as well.
In terms of numbers, is plusing another 20% extra on top of it, or maybe doing two times what you initially calculated as cost? How
Yeah,
does
well, I think it came much more closer to the potential that it has to the buyer, right? It's not about
But
cost.
how do you make that tangible? What the value for Snap is?
Yeah, it's,
Did
it's a
you
bit
get
of,
data from Snap about that at all, or
no,
did you
no,
have
no,
any?
there was no data because it's very innovative. Of course, what we do, yeah, we just put a price on it, and that's what we, yeah. Or actually, my brother just put a price on it. He
Yeah.
said, "Okay, this is what we want to get out of it. I'm gonna top up that game,"
Mhm.
and that's yeah, that's in the end what we settled for. So that's was a good call,
And just ahead of AI.
and just ahead of AI. And that's
Yeah.
actually, if you talk about insights, like we never expected things to go that fast. But now, as you see AI taking over the whole 3D industry, creative tech, like everything that's happening, I'm happy we made the choice that we did. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think right now Vert is part of Snap,
Yeah.
but
We sold everything.
you're no longer there.
No, and no, actually, me, my
Did
brother,
you join
yeah,
them
yeah,
initially?
we're all out of Snap. We all laid down our roles. Yeah, in the end, it's so Snap bought us to create a new business offering for
Hmm.
companies, like a B2B offering. They wanted to launch and actually did launch AR enterprise services,
Hmm.
the reality enterprise services. So they wanted to help different business verticals to discover and implement the potential of augmented reality and different kind of innovative tech in their business models. And they wanted to start with fashion. So that's why they bought a couple of companies, a couple of startups. So that was funny actually for us when we entered Snap. We kind of became part of this buy and build strategy
Yeah,
and that Snap had envisioned to build this new offering,
yeah,
which was also a very interesting journey. But I
yeah,
would go deep into that. But it was actually a lot of fun to see how we could build a new offering from these four startups together and put that in the market.
yeah,
And yeah, Snap also, as was a lot, I think, in the news as well, also faced quite a bit of headwinds, like a lot of other tech companies as well. After COVID, there was a
mhm,
big boost, and then things
yeah,
went down. So there were a lot of, or a couple of layoff rounds. And I think also our new business was put under a magnifying glass, like, hey, is this really what's gonna now bring our business the growth that we need? And yeah, with everything happening in AI, Snap made another choice. So after a year, Aries, or the AR Enterprise Services offering, was dissolved and the startups were let go. I think we as a small team still stayed on, and we were linked to the advertising department, working still with the fashion companies that we were working with. but on a much smaller level. I think our solution was completely built on big volumes. Yeah, if you're doing an ad, even if you're doing quite a bit of ads, it's a couple of products every time. It's just, yeah, this whole
Yes, sir.
machine is not built for these small. So in good, how do you say, with Snapchat, we decided to lay down our roles and quit the company. Yeah, or how do you say, quit our jobs. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um, Two questions that I have. Looking back, how was it for you to be co-founder with your brother?
Yeah, it was actually yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's very can definitely be challenging, of course, as
Uh-huh.
well. But I think me and my brother are very complementary in our business skills and in our experiences. So we really helped each other. Like me and my brother can really discuss and brainstorm and yeah, it's more value together. So I think that's something that we both really enjoyed. I think for Tristan, it was maybe also kind of good to have a third person, just a third founder
Yeah.
in the team. You know, even though it's brother and sister, I think I brought on another perspective, so it
Yeah.
was good for the whole balance of the three. And yeah, I think me and my brother, yeah, you kind of know you always have each other's back. So that's a very solid, kind of good base to
A sort of
do
implied
business on.
trust.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you never question whether
Yeah.
somebody. Yeah, like we would never do anything bad to each other, right? That's I think a very cool thing. Yeah, but of course, yeah, it definitely also brought challenges on, especially when things went really rough, and you sometimes maybe have different perspective, or you have other desires or other expectations. Yeah, then things can get really personal really quickly. And we definitely also experienced that in COVID. But yeah, I think we handled it really well. And in the end, it brought us closer. And I think as well with the outcome, of course, that we had exiting to Snapchat, which is just an amazing journey, or how to say, end of the journey. Yeah, I think we're just super happy that we took that, let's say, risk or took that step together.
And a second question I had is, you meanwhile you went from employee to entrepreneur to founder to exiting. What is the most valuable lesson to you that you learned?
What is the most valuable lesson to me? Yeah. Well, I think, and that is something personal, of course, but
Yeah.
I really love kind of like exploring these new roles and climbing
Mm-hmm.
this ladder, if you want to call it a ladder, or like unlocking these different levels. Yeah. For me, it's like, and now again with investing, it's like learning a new skill, right? I start new
Mm-hmm.
in a role that yeah, I have definitely, of course, background in part of it, but yeah, I still enjoy learning new skills and new things. And I think, yeah, having this kind of trust in yourself and just saying yes to this new adventure is, well, maybe it's not for everybody, but it's definitely what helped me in taking these different levels and taking these different steps in my life. And I completely enjoy maybe the uncomfortable kind of feeling in the beginning, like, oh, this is something new, and can I do this? How am I gonna make this work? How am I gonna be, successful, or how can I do a good job in
Yeah.
this? And yeah, kind of just starting over again in a bit. It's not, you don't completely start over, but you kind of embark
Well, you
new.
level up.
Yeah, you level up. Yeah,
But
yeah,
then again, you do start over to some extent, I
yeah,
guess.
to some extent as well. Yeah, yeah.
So moving on to the last phase, because now we've had the entrepreneurial journey and you're now paying it forward as an investor. What is so exciting about that made you stay in the startup ecosystem?
Yeah, I just really love the energy, right? Like the entrepreneurial energy, people working on like not agreeing with the status quo or not being happy with what is now reality. And yeah, taking that leap of faith to join forces maybe with somebody else or to do it all alone. A lot of respect for that as well. To just embark on that entrepreneurial journey and say, I know how we can do this better or different or more innovative or quicker or whatever. And yeah, I love that energy. I love that ability to create, that ability to make. to envision, maybe like going all the way back to my first
Yeah.
step in the journey, like starting with this blank canvas and designing something new, right?
From
Or creating
scratch.
something, something different. And also all the challenges. It's like solving a puzzle every time, right? But then, so now I'm also in this process of kind of deciding, am I gonna start another company,
Yeah.
or I'm definitely gonna do more investing, or am I gonna work maybe more as an enabler in the ecosystem? I've made up my mind that I definitely want to stay part of the whole startup ecosystem. It's just too much fun.
Yeah.
It's kind of DNA maybe, and I've kind of found my fit within the community of entrepreneurs.
Is it also sort of, how do you say, that you get dependent on that energy?
In a way, I definitely need it. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I can personally say I definitely need it as well. If I just stay at home, work at home all the time, I would be a very unhappy person, I think. So I need that buzz. I need that feel of working together with the team on something, or being part of these events is already like very inspiring. Well, you've been to
Yeah.
a lot of these events as well yourself, so you know kind of how it feels. And I think also for the whole world of investors, it's good that founders or former founders enter that game, because it's very important to provide that perspective. I understand what it means to be a founder,
Yeah.
and investing in somebody, and maybe helping them, or preferably helping them if they need that help, and not if they don't need that help, of course. But if I can provide access to people in my network, or help them with challenges that I've also overcome, or at least,
Mhm.
if needed, provide them with a little piece of advice. And I think this is also what I get from other people still, in my network. I'm not done learning. I have people who are like ahead of me in their game or in their career that I still look up to. And I ask them for advice, and I ask them to help me in making my decisions. And I love to be that person for somebody else. Yeah, who I can be of help to.
So, who are your role models?
I just went on a nice journey, a nice holiday business trip to India with
Uh,
an amazing group of entrepreneurs.
uh,
Pretty, how do you say, group of successful entrepreneurs in the Netherlands. I think these are all people that I can definitely learn from, and I feel very inspired by what. Well, we went to India and seeing that economy and that country grow, and the
uh,
way they just embark on this amazing journey of progress and technological innovation, and then making that trip with other entrepreneurs and listening to their findings, or having these conversations with them about, hey, what do we see here? What do we see in the Netherlands? How would you go about, hey, what are things that you kind of, that's amazing. That's just super inspiring.
yeah, I can imagine it is. And how did you think? Did you think about India as a
Yeah, India
country?
was amazing. It's just like the whole, I think culturally, as an
Yeah.
anthropologist, I found
Yeah.
it very magical. Like it's really, I'd never been to India. So it's really the place where you see that the Middle East and Asia meet,
Hmm.
like you see it in the people and the shapes and the colors and the symbols and the languages, and like, it's amazing. So I thought that was magical. It's also, of course, very chaotic, very busy.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really a
Yeah.
whole different feel, but I really loved it. And startup ecosystem there is just buzzing. It's like you feel this whole vibe of like India is now like they're not in the corner anymore. They're like, hey, we're here and we're here to make a statement. We're going to innovate and we're going to build and we're going to, make sure that our country gets all of the technological innovation and progress that we need. And that's amazing to see. I mean, it's a 1.4 billion people, that's
Yeah.
like continent. That's not a country. And like, I think for every founder, you get jealous of that kind of market. If we would be able to scale to a market that's 1.4 billion people
Yeah.
instead of like the Netherlands, and then all of these, like this whole patchwork of all these different countries in Europe with all their different legislation, languages, bureaucracy.
Yeah, I was about to ask can we learn in Europe from India, because that is a single market, like the US is a sort of a single
Absolutely.
market.
Yeah, I think that's definitely. I've been to the State of Dutch Tech
Yeah.
event as well last week, and I think that's definitely something that we should try. But yeah, well, it's a job as well. It's a big challenge. But if we could make it a lot easier for founders to scale in Europe, to really have that bigger market and have rules that kind of apply on a European level, yeah, it would just make it so much easier to really have the European benefit of all these innovations happening in all these different countries. It's like sometimes it's amazing. People are building sometimes the same stuff. Like it would be great if we could just make that a lot more accessible.
I don't know if you know, but is there more orchestration, like more in Dutch we would call it regie in India than there is in Europe?
I think the fact that India is one country
Yeah.
really helps. There's a government that is very keen on progress, that really makes way for all kinds of innovation. They have a lot of investments that go into progress, building technology, technological innovation. There is so much potential and support. And I think in the Netherlands, it's also a little bit comparing apples and pears, right? It's
Yeah.
like we're not in the same part of our journey as a country.
No.
But I think the fact that we are very small, we have a lot less people, and there's a lot more legislation, there's a lot more bureaucracy, there's less funding,
Mhm.
so scaling up in the way that entrepreneurs can in India, it's just,
Is that also because of the size of the market? I mean,
yeah,
1.4 billion is very different from what is it, 17 or 18 million?
completely. I think the multiple and the perspective that you can get as an investor investing in a company in India,
No, but
and
also
it's
from a mindset perspective, from an
so
entrepreneurial perspective, I can
completely.
imagine that, well, with 1.4 billion people, the sky's the limit pretty much.
Completely. Yeah,
Whereas
completely.
if you're in this small, tiny little country with
Yeah.
a lot of inhabitants, by the way, but it sort of limits your natural scope.
Yeah, and it limits your whole, like your perspective, your scale, right? The amount that you can. Well, if you want to grow, and that's what you see a lot of Dutch entrepreneurs also do,
Mm.
you need to go abroad.
Yeah,
You need to go beyond these borders because the Netherlands alone is just really small.
yeah, true.
Yeah. And with the same effort, more or less, in India, you can build a company and scale to 1.4 billion people, your product. Not the same effort, but of course, like you always have these first stages of like innovation, your product market fit. But then if you have product market fit and you want to scale,
It's
it's just
yeah, it's just
boom, Yeah. Wow. We were
yeah.
all like super jealous. We're like, oh, that's amazing.
So is that also going abroad to? Is that also an advice you would give female founders?
It's difficult, right? I mean, on one hand, you would really love people to stay here and
Mm.
scale from the Netherlands and keep keep those amazing founders here. But on the other hand, I can imagine that people make that choice completely, because, you want to grow your business. And if you believe in your product, you want to be able to scale. And if that's not something you can do in the Netherlands, then of
Yeah,
course
then
you're
you need to go.
abroad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then you need to go elsewhere. Yeah,
I mean, in the end, it's also an American company that bought ours. Yeah.
yeah, and thinking force you to think a bit bigger than just the Netherlands.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like a great place to move to the closing. So I'm on a mission to make inclusion in tech the new normal. How can we get the funding of mixed teams to be the norm in VC? So let me give you a bit of context. The way I try to operationalize inclusion in tech is by how funding is done towards female founders, male founders, but also mixed teams. And I believe that if we make funding of mixed teams the norm in VC or in from a venture capital point of view, early stage, we can get a much more inclusive tech ecosystem. Is that something you agree with?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, completely. I mean, we are in third ourselves. We were a
Yeah.
mixed founder team, and I think it just also actually at Snap I saw this. They were very keen on diversity, very keen on mixed teams, mixed leadership. Uh, across like the whole diversity perspective. And I think that's, I really found that amazing. I thought it was really good role modeling as well for all of the employees at Snap. And also for us, it like really made me realize like, wow, yeah, if you want to build a product for everybody,
Yeah.
you need everybody on board of your team to kind of fill these gaps and fill these perspectives, right?
Yeah.
And we also noticed it in our business. Like I sometimes had a different kind of perspective than the guys, and yeah, you need all of it. You need all of it to be successful. So yeah, I completely agree with your statement, and it's definitely also something that I myself as an investor focus on or am very keen on. Founding teams by any means is very important, but also so I do small business angel tickets sometimes in single startups, but I also invest in different startup funds. I think also in the funds, it's very important to kind of take into account, hey, what is the focus of the fund, right? Do they have a lot of portfolio? Are they all male?
Yeah.
The investors, or do they have a lot of male-run companies? Are they all female? Sometimes all female. I do agree definitely with like supporting female founders, but all female is not always good as well, right?
No.
You need these mixed teams. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we get to more mixed, to more funding of mixed teams? And
Yeah.
especially how do we get it to trickle down from early stage to, let's say, to C to Series A?
Yeah. 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 That's, I think, yeah, in the end, it also takes time, right? It also takes time to really change that system, to really change that mindset. It takes time for instance, founders like me run their company and then exit and then join in this investor. So I think we can all sense that there is a shift happening. And of course, we all love that to go really fast. But sometimes I know as an anthropologist as well, culturally, things you either disrupt really quickly and things happen overnight.
Yeah.
But in this kind of sense, I think it happens more gradually, right? Women enter the founder ecosystem and then exit their company and then enter the investor. And you see also people who are not founders, of course, entering the investment space currently. And I think there's just a lot more perspective and vision on including and having a more diverse policy in this. And I think that's good,
So you do see the change.
I definitely do see the change. Do you?
Well, I read an interesting statistic. It's about European VC, by the way,
Yeah.
that about 40-ish% of pre-seed was indeed over the past, what was it, 5 years, I think, was mixed.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a pretty big jump because historically it would be anywhere between 12 and 18% or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that I would call that the penalty on having a female founder on board. That seemed early stage, so pre-seed, that seems to have moved away. What we don't see is that it trickles down to seed.
No,
And
that's
that
true.
sort of worries me because either the teams are not successful in getting seed funding, which may be one thing, and then we need to look into why that is, or those teams in effect don't work that well as we all assume. And that could also be an option, but I don't know which of the two it is right now. So I'm betting on actually that it just doesn't trickle down and that they don't get the funding yet.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also interesting to see maybe what funds are behind those like later stage rounds, and if at these funds like the whole diversity perspective has already happened.
And now that I'm talking about it, I think most of the pre-seed is done by angels like you.
Yeah, right. So
and it could be a network play. So if probably you're pretty well connected with VCs, but not all angels are.
Yeah. No,
And,
that's definitely.
and if you don't have that connection, that's one thing I took away from a trip to San Francisco last year, is that once you're in the circuit, once you're in the circle, you're in.
Yeah.
And because these, especially the big guys, just share tickets with each other.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very much a game of who knows who. That's I also found that. Yeah. Yeah. And then if you have a certain perspective within that circle, it's really hard to break out of that. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you're not in the circle, you're not going to get in unless you know someone in the circle that brings you in.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, interesting. And as we've seen in the Dutch State of Dutch Tech report, there's a diminish anyway in the number of startups now happening. So that's definitely something to worry about, because if there are anyway less startups, then
But
the whole.
isn't that part of the economic cycle any also?
I think so. Oh, I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. And I
Because
think
uh,
there was actually an interesting perspective also on one of my LinkedIn posts around this, that somebody said, yeah, more and more founders are bootstrapping. I thought, oh, that's actually
yeah,
an interesting development. If that's the case, then that's good in a way, you know?
yeah. Because women, at least when I started this journey, women were bootstrapping more than men. And also were, if they were seeking investors or investments, they would do that later stage. So
Really?
Series A and later when they had traction and they had product market fit. And then to really put in the money like you joined third
Yeah.
to scale.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting perspective. I wonder if that's like by choice or if it's a necessity, maybe. But
I
I
don't
think I can also imagine that it's maybe a different kind of choice that women make.
that at the time, from what I read in the research, it was simply a different choice that women
A choice,
make
yeah.
in terms of when they seek funding because they
Interesting.
are more, let's say, confident
Yeah,
of themselves. At least I spoke to Arosha Brouwer about this early on, and she said, well, yeah, it just makes the whole discussion about men or women mute
yeah,
because
yeah, exactly.
it doesn't matter. I have traction.
Yeah, you have a good business. Yeah, it's
I have a
interesting.
good business. So then women feel more confident, I
Cool.
think. So
That's actually a good development. Yeah,
that's my takeaway. Wait,
yeah, interesting.
with that, Esther Bisschop, thank you very much for an amazing conversation, the longest
Yeah,
I've had. If people want to learn more about you, connect with you, where would you like to send them?
LinkedIn, I think is the best way. I'm not in a lot of on a lot of social media, so please find me on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Cool. And we'll,
Thank you so much, Dirk-Jan, and thanks for all the work you do. It's
uh,
amazing. Your podcast, I think you're doing a really good job.
well, that's very nice to hear. Thank you, Esther. And yeah, as I said, we'll include the links in the show notes. So thanks for an amazing interview, Esther. And listeners, thank you very much for listening. And until the next episode, keep being awesome. Well, that's a wrap for episode 93 of Women Disrupting Tech about the message that changed the future of Third with Esther Bisschop. Esther and I hope that you've enjoyed our conversation as much as we did. And if you'd like to learn more or connect with Esther, please check out the links in the show notes. As usual, you can find the show notes at Women Disrupting Tech, all one word, .blog. On the same website, you can also become a member of the Women Disrupting Tech community. Members get early access to new episodes and get an exclusive email with my personal reflections on each of the episodes, including practical takeaways and magical moments. So check out the show notes for a link. When you enjoy listening to this podcast, please subscribe or follow the show on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or YouTube. Following Women Disrupting Tech is a great zero-cost way to support my guests in making inclusion in tech the new normal by the end of 2032. You can also follow us on social media. Please check out at The True Story Company on LinkedIn and Instagram and at Women Disrupting Tech on YouTube and Substack. Finally, if you want to connect with me, please reach out to me via dirkjan at womendisruptingtech.blog or send me a DM on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, simply search for my name, Dirk-Jan Hupkes, and you'll find me. With that, I wish you a wonderful day. I hope to see you in the next episode, and until then, keep being awesome.